Hello. Hello. So I put my Christmas cup up. Decided I would decorate my cup this year. It's not easy to do because trees are decorated. More trees are. I'm sorry, I just got a really rude email. Sorry. Trees are decorated, by hanging things onto protruding branches, whereas Stanley Cup has nothing like that. So, but I did manage to find a way to decorate it, and indeed light it up. So, I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna do an Instagram later, and I was thinking I'm gonna do that behind it. But anyway, season's greetings. We're also doing a hockey.
I was at a holiday party yesterday, and my friend Chris watches the show daily, and he was like, "Hey, if I could say anything about the show, give you any constructive criticism, he was like, well, maybe change the set a little at your house." And I'm like, "But I'm a dog house. Do you understand? Like, even this couch is covered for dogs. It's actually a nice couch,
Right?
But I can't let it be a nice couch most of the time because dogs are lounging and are on the show. But just for Chris, I added an extra green pillow.
Oh, nice. It looks very nice. I like the throw pillow. Yes.
So when Jordan sleeps,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Then last week I added my card catalog, which is
Right.
you don't always add to try to give it some more.
So I just wanted to let him know I heard his request and I answered it.
I could take down one of mine or my father's many degrees to make but then you wouldn't think I was as intelligent as I really am.
No, that would be it's true.
And I do want to say I like the Christmas cup, but there should be a Hanukkah cup as well.
There's going to be, and I have an idea for that. I have an idea. It's coming.
Because I got to tell you.
Hold your horses on that one. I got an idea.
Okay. I got to tell you, like, there is this giant menorah in my neighborhood, right? This guy puts up, and it's funny because it's like PVC piping, whatever. He puts it in front of his store, and it's massive, right? Because this is how Jewish people.
Man, I can do that. I have enough PVC piping to do that. You just gave me an idea.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool thing. But this is how Jewish people feel at holiday time, because 99.9% of the people that come up to me say Merry Christmas, and I don't give them a hard time. But it would be nice if people that could recognize my name, if I get one Happy Hanukkah, I'll fall over dead, and that'll be a nice day.
Yeah, I know. My wife's Jewish, so I hear this all the time, of course. And
but I don't hate Christmas. I don't actually like it. But just that aspect is just kind of weird. Like, nobody recognizes that I'm a Jew.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. It's just funny. I mean, it's tough because obviously, I've learned about this because being married to a Jewish woman, you learn about like the how Christmassy our world is, and you don't think about it until you are married to somebody Jewish or Jewish yourself.
Right.
So I went with her parents when we were first dating. We all went to the Rockette show at Radio City Music Hall during the holidays, which is a big deal, a fun thing. And it was fun. We were watching the whole thing go off, and people, it was all Christmassy, and it didn't really bother me. I mean, they were into it. They liked Christmas carols. They told me not to feel self-conscious about it. But then at the end, it was like, and of course, the real meaning of Christmas, our true Lord. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm just sinking into my seat, and I'm like, oh, I grew up a Christian with lots of ministers. I'm totally fine. But then I'm so totally uncomfortable with with this because it's immediately, and they're like, oh, it's fine. We're so used to it. But
we are used to it. We celebrated both in my household when I was young, because how do you tell, like, your 5, 6, and 7-year-olds that, well, your holiday sort of like sucks compared to Christmas? You don't do that, right? So my parents did have a tree, and they did do both because look, it was a neighborhood that had plenty of Italian folks and Irish and everything else. And so, but it, as far as like first and second, Hanukkah is like 20th.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say one of the most clever things that I've seen on Twitter celebrating the holidays was a sign at a half-vacant strip mall, and they posted this. If you can see.
Hold on.
There was a glare. I couldn't see it.
Oh, Feliz Navidad. That's pretty good. I like that.
I like that. I do.
Wow. I got to put that on my set. I got to print that out. I like that.
So we do have to acknowledge that, yes, ELO, Journey, Pearl Jam.
A proper acknowledgement today. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but we held up.
Tupac, they're all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I figured you did, but I have to acknowledge it.
No, for sure. and we've big Yes fans here on the show. So as is a lot of Canada. Canada's a big Yes country.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I like that I saw online and almost immediately is that Rush, their Twitter account, they were very, very happy that Yes, I mean, because Yes was a big influence on them.
Yeah.
That Yes was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and like I said, I think if I can mention, I think I sent both of you a link to a piece in the Buffalo News by a writer named Jagr, who, if I didn't send it to you, I'll send it to you because it was really good. And he's a big progressive rock fan, and he said that basically what's been going on over the number of years is that the Rolling Stone hierarchy, meaning Jan Wenner and a bunch of those people who hate progressive rock, who think it's not for the common man, think it's snobbish or egalitarian or whatever, they've been at the forefront of blocking progressive rock bands. And now that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has sort of included a fan vote as part of it, and I believe Yes was second or third, ELO and Journey were at the top. Now Journey's not progressive, and neither is ELO. They're but Yes obviously is one of the forerunners of progressive rock. That those bands are starting to finally get the recognition that they deserve. So in the next few years, bands like the Moody Blues and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Jethro Tull and King Crimson should get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because I think there's a lot of popular support for that.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Eck could speak to this, because we always look for who's going to show up and play at the induction, right? It'll be in Cleveland. They'll sell tickets, yada yada yada. But people were asking me, do you think John Anderson will sing with Yes? And my answer is yes. I think John Anderson will bury the hatchet for that show. I don't know if it'll go any further, because I always felt like it was Steve Howe's issue, not John Anderson's issue, because he's the one who kicked him out of the band and didn't let him get back in. But I think for this, it'll be okay. Now, I can't say with 100% certainty that Steve Perry will join Journey and play.
I don't think he can sing anymore.
No, he did sing. There's a video of him last year in Minnesota singing at like a nightclub. It wasn't fantastic, but again, got to be fair. I don't know if there was a mixing board. I don't know any of the things.
Yeah, those things are
right. But he still was okay, and so he is singing. So do you think he'll sing with Journey? I don't think he will.
I think
there's got to be issues there. I don't know the issues, but there's got to be. I mean, I saw Journey. My wife and I were in Atlantic City a couple summers ago, and we had a rare night where our in-laws were like, oh, watch the kids. We're like, holy cow, we got to find something to do. So we went around and we were walking, and we got to like the Borgata, and Journey was playing. We're like, well, that's gonna be fun. Why not? We'll go see Journey. And they had the other singer who was phenomenal. He's got an incredible voice, and he just nails. I mean, if you close your eyes, it's Steve Perry for all practical purposes, but he's really, really good. And the rest of the band looked bored out of their friggin' minds to be doing it. Like they I don't
know. Neil Sean, I think, still has pizzazz.
When I saw them, they looked like they were expecting a paycheck. I mean, it was a casino gig in the middle of July, so they weren't, But to think, and as they're sitting there the whole time, all you keep thinking to yourself is, what is Steve Perry doing like right now? Like, what is he possibly doing right now that could possibly be, keep him from doing this, unless there's just some real problem.
Right.
Well, like sometimes and things happen. I mean, I'm in a band, and the things happen. There are things that make people leave bands that never come back. So
all I know is that the precedent has been set, because remember when Kiss was inducted, Peter Criss and Ace Frehley were on the stage when they accepted, but then Kiss, I guess they did not perform because they only wanted to perform with the newer members.
Right.
I don't know if it was because they were very friendly to Ace and Peter Criss on the podium, but I guess they didn't want to hurt the feelings of the other guys who they're playing with now. I mean, I'm not sure.
Well, because they don't get inducted, like Eric Singer doesn't get inducted. He's been a big part of the band for a long time. Like, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough. All right, folks, let's get going here.
Let's talk hockey.
That helps.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, December 22nd, 2016.
Nope.
It's not?
21st.
So close.
But yet so
Wait a
far.
second. Oh, wow. All right, I'm sorry.
It's the
Ask Alexa if you're not sure.
Yeah, I unplugged her.
You unplugged her.
Yes,
to plug in the tree. I had to plug in the Stanley Cup. I had to unplug it.
Unplugged her because the stupid, you know what, didn't know what the Maple Leafs were or not, who Nazem Kadri was. So
I said, "What's happening to the Maple Leafs?" And she's like, "I'm afraid I cannot answer that question." But what she did, she answered the exact way that I would have answered, Mike. So I think she's exactly right. I'm afraid I cannot answer that question either. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, December 21st, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzCast at HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday this time to fill you in on the comings and goings. We have one more show we're going to do tomorrow on Thursday, and then we won't be here for Friday or Monday. We're going to take a 4-day weekend. So tomorrow we're going to have a little Christmas show, and I have some ideas. I was going to invite some guests, like a bunch of different people, and have like a Christmas/Hanukkah, because Hanukkah starts on Christmas Eve night this year.
It does,
which is fun for everyone. And I will have some Hanukkah-based thing behind me tomorrow. I'm building it right now. I've got a couple ways to go. And I was thinking of building a giant menorah for the front lawn out of broken hockey sticks. I thought that would be kind of cool.
I like that.
So I might be doing that. I could do a really big one. I have a lot of broken hockey sticks. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. But let's get right into things today. And before we get into rumors, I do want to talk more about the rumors I've been posting. I've been getting a lot of people who really seem to think that I'm absolutely 100% right about these rumors. So I want to talk about what they think. And we'll get to that shortly. We have to touch base on Mark Messier, on Jagr, who's now tied Mark Messier for second all-time in points and is convinced he's going to play till he's 50. By the way, I'm going to podcast till I'm 50. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'm way past that. I think he might. We'll see if he does. It'll be a matter of if teams want him at 50. Right. That's really going to be the issue. He may want to play. They just may not want him. So we'll see. I covered the Mark Messier game where we tied Gordie Howe at the time, right?
Right.
And it was a pretty big deal. And he was, talking about his little stint in the WHA and everything, and it was great. And, it's interesting for Jagr because Jagr always seemed to be shooting for the best European player ever. Then after that, it doesn't seem like it matters as much to him anything else he does. He cares about Wayne Gretzky, but I don't think he cares a lot that he's passing Messier. Like, it just doesn't seem like it's that big a deal for him because he was always focused on the European trail rather than the overall. And so I think it's an amazing accomplishment considering he missed years in the KHL. It's really cool, and I'm happy for the guy. And he's really, considering what he was like earlier in his career, being a little bit self-absorbed and such, he's really turned into a great guy and still a really good player.
Well, if his goal, I mean, who knows how realistic it is, but if his goal is to play till age 50 and he's 44 right now, meaning 6 more years, then you got to think his goal is to beat Gretzky. That his goal is to be the number one of all time. Now, I don't know. I don't
far off of Gretzky though. He's still a lot.
I'd have to look it up to see how many points he's behind him. But right now he's averaging around 50 to 55 points a year. If he's playing 6 more seasons, that's 300 points. How many? If you can pull up how many points behind Gretzky he is. What I find interesting though, and it was we know the situation in Florida right now. We don't know whether, Jagr is going to be part of that organization going forward because, there's been benefits to him being there, his influence on Barkov and Huberdeau. But there's a certain window, and then all of a sudden maybe they think they can grow without him, like in Philadelphia. And the question is where he would go to have that same effect on another team. And, you could say, and I know that on Hockey Central this afternoon, they were saying, well, Vegas might be a possibility because he'd be a gated.
Boy, that seems like a bad idea, but, Yeah.
But honestly, I think that another team, and, I'm just another team that might be a good fit would be Toronto. Because and he would help. What he does really well is help young players. And young stars, and especially teaching them how to be stars. He, no question, is why Voracek and Giroux, blossomed into what they are. They were going to be good players, but he
he basically taught them how you have to play every shift. Like and Giroux says it many times. Like there were shifts, he said, early in his career where Gluds that I would take off, and Jagr taught me how not to ever take off a shift, which sounds simple and basic, but it isn't. It's really mentally exhausting to do that. To answer your question, he's still 1,000 points behind Gretzky.
Okay, then forget it.
All right, so
not happening.
Well, we're 970 to be exact.
Yeah, not happening.
What if he got 3 points for every point thereafter from this point forward when he catch Gretzky?
I mean, the difference between there was a great tweet put out by Buchagras. The career point separation between first and second is the same as the separation between second and 104th. So that he's not catching Gretzky.
Yeah. So he's gotten as far as he can.
He can play till 60 and not catch Gretzky. I mean, he's
basically what he's trying to do is he's trying to create enough of a buffer between himself and the rest of the mortals, because the immortal has such a big lead. But
and also just to throw in perspective, okay, the age that Gretzky was when he got his 1,887th point. Okay, so Jagr's 44. You know that guy's 1,887th point. Played, and 44 years, 309 days old. So he's almost 485, right? Mark Messier was 43 years and 73 days old when he got his 1,887th point. Gretzky was 28.
28. Wow.
Okay, so he was 16 years younger than Jagr.
But you have to factor in he played in a completely different era. I'm not saying
great. I mean, but there's only so much of that you can.
Yeah, you can only factor in so much. And I would say this: if he played in this era, he still would be better than Connor McDavid. He would be.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. I really do. I don't
think there's any question about that.
I mean, I think McDavid's a better skater than Gretzky ever was, but there's no.
Yeah, but there's more to the game than skating, right? I mean,
to me, that's always been the thing. Like Gretzky, and I've said this before about Gretzky to me, is that players, when they come into the league, you would always hear he shoots like Gretzky, or he passes like Gretzky, or he sees the ice like Gretzky, or he leads like Gretzky. But it was always like a player would have one of Gretzky's traits,
right?
Where Gretzky had them all, of course, because he was
right.
Gretzky. So the difference is, that's kind of the staggering thing. Like, McDavid skates like the wind, better than anyone probably in the NHL, maybe, ever. But and McDavid can do things at a higher speed, I think, than almost anybody we've ever seen.
Yeah. But Gretzky knew where to go before anybody else knew where the puck was going. And that was the thing. He, you watched him the way he, as a kid, was charting things on the television with his dad and would. And that's something that it doesn't matter how fast you are, that still works. If you know where the puck is before everybody else, you have an edge. And he would always have that edge no matter what the era is.
Oh yeah. And I've talked about that charting story too, and I love that too. And something that I just brought up the other night with my soccer players, the whole idea of him, how he would have a draw a rink on a piece of paper and follow the puck the entire game with his finger.
Yeah. Every
time he watched a game on Hockey Night in Canada. The point where he learned the patterns and where the puck's most likely to go, and that's a huge thing to be able to do.
I tried to do that with the intermission show with Hockey Night in Canada, and I would always rip the paper on Don Cherry, like it would just end there.
I mean, here's an indication. Gretzky's defining year, the 92 goal, 212 point year. Second in scoring that year was Mike Bossy. He had 64 goals. The difference between Bossy and Gretzky, point-wise, was greater than the amount of goals that Bossy scored. It was 65 points.
That's why the era is only so,
right.
They both played and they were both playing at the same time. So it's really hard to throw that in there.
But last year, the leading scorer in the league, if memory serves, Russ, he was barely over 100 points, correct? And before that, the year that Jamie Benn won, I think it was in the low 90s.
Well, last year was I was gonna say last year nobody got 100.
Wasn't it Jamie Benn last year? I thought.
Yeah, it was Jamie Benn last year. Nobody got 100. He had like 88 or 90 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy. And it's an amazing record. But now he's second. He's second all time. And that's. There's no harm in that. And Jagr's worked really hard, and he got there. It seems to me, when you consider that Jagr did play some years out of the league, right? That does play into it too, because he would have had more points. He was in his prime a little bit, or I don't know what you would call Jagr's prime, but he did spend some years in the KHL.
I think his prime was in the mid to late 90s. I mean, when he won the 2 Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh, he was a very good player, but the central piece on that Penguins team was Lemieux, and he was young, and he was a good compliment, but I don't think he became the star that he really became until like maybe Lemieux disappeared from the picture when he had, I think it was when he had the Hodgkins. And, he 90, 98, 99, 2000, and then when we came back, and not saying he took a back seat, but it was sort of like a 1-2 punch. And then, the Washington era, I mean, still putting up big points, but things started. That was when that the entitled Jagr, the Jagr who was making the big money, but didn't seem to be putting in all the effort. And then his stint with the Rangers, the same thing. So.
Actually, Mike, we were both right. Kane had 106, but Ben did have 89. I was right about Ben, but it was the year before probably where you're right, where he led the league with so few. But here's how low the points were. I mean, Ben had 89, Crosby 85, then you had like 82, 82, 78, 78. Like, it's a really low, probably the lowest total in forever. I mean, other than like going back 30 years or something.
And here's an indication of how the points scored were different in that era, 80, 81, 82. Wilf Pema, who was the number 1 right winger on the Maple Leafs in 1981, had 97 points.
Yeah.
Wow. That would lead the league, and Wilf Pema was a good player. He was not like a top, all-star type of player. And he had almost 100 points with a team that barely made the playoffs that year.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it was a crazy time. There's no question about that. Things have changed a great deal. But I think it's impressive, and it's if he had played those other couple years, he might have 200 or 300 more points. I mean, depending on where he is. So then he could have had maybe a shot at Gretzky. But no matter how you slice it would have taken him 20 more years than Gretzky. There's a hello.
Anna's decided she likes the show, so she's watching.
Excellent. Awesome.
And we also have to give some acknowledgement to Roberto Luongo, who tied Terry Sawchuk with 447 career victories. He will probably catch Curtis Joseph this year for 4th. Joseph had 454, and I think it's within reason he'll catch Eddie Belfour, who's at 484 probably next year. Then it's Patrick Waugh. I mean, right now he's over 100 wins ahead of him. That would be 2 or 3 more seasons.
I still think Lundqvist has a chance to catch Brodeur. It's an outside chance, but it's a chance.
Okay, Lundqvist has 389 currently, and he is 31 years old?
Yep.
So if he plays another 10 years, he could. I mean, that's 40 wins, 30, 35 or 40 wins.
Although he could have had one last night if the Rangers would have just handled the team. And this is where I will agree with Eck. Playing their best against the best team in the league. Who cares if you're in first place? You can't go with Antti Ranta against the Pittsburgh Penguins and expect to win. I don't know what Vigneault was thinking in that.
No, it's more than just expecting to win. It's also just that. I mean, that's the team that knocked you out of the playoffs last year. I mean, There's a lot more to that.
Well, let me just ask something. That's a common thread between the 3 goalies we just discussed: Curtis Joseph, Luongo, and Lundqvist. None of them will win a Stanley Cup. If Luongo, say he's 2nd or 3rd in all-time wins, like Cujo is 4th, and Cujo has not been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and there's some question of whether he did. Some people think that he doesn't deserve it. I mean, do you think that? I mean, if Lundqvist doesn't win a Stanley Cup and Luongo doesn't win a Stanley Cup, do they not get in because they didn't win?
There's a risk because the Hall of Fame has been extremely tough on goalies.
Yeah,
and it does seem like all the goalies that have gotten voted in have won a cup somewhere along the way. I'm trying to because even Tony Esposito won one, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so it does seem like in the last, 10, 15 years when the grading seems to have gotten tougher, that all of the goalies have at least a cup win.
Well, I think Tony Esposito won as a backup in Montreal when he was still with Montreal.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, yeah.
He didn't win in Chicago, but I think
so it was a backup in Montreal. I was thinking it was one or the other. Okay.
But we're, right now on the list, Brodeur won cups. He's in. Belfour, Cujo is not in. Sawchuk is in. Luongo is still playing. Jacques Plante is in. Tony Esposito is in. Glenn Hall, he won with Detroit, I believe.
And even Rogie won in Montreal. So
right. Grant Fuhr won. Chris Osgood is 11th. He won 2 Stanley Cups, and he is not in. So that's it. Chris Osgood has to get in before Curtis Joseph has a chance to get in.
Osgood will never get in.
Right, and that's the thing. It's Mike Vernon.
Mike Vernon will never get in.
Yep. John.
Yeah, it's true. I agree with them. I agree with both those.
Even at this point, it looks like Mike Richter won't get in, even though there's other things outside the NHL that could possibly help push him, like the World Cup team. He's not getting in.
Tom Barrasso. There's another one.
He's not getting in.
Not getting in, no way.
That's different. But I think Richter's going to get in eventually.
I don't know. I used to think that. I don't think it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right, but it's a tough one. It's really. I mean, you throw Luongo. I mean, Cujo also won a gold medal, right?
He won a gold medal, but he was the backup.
He was
right. I mean, Luongo won in 2010. That.
Yeah, but Richter has a gold medal too. Like that.
Right.
It's not counting. That's what I'm saying.
And he has a World Cup too.
Right.
But we're talking Stanley.
Yeah.
It does seem like the Stanley Cup for the goalie is your entry, your way in, and if not.
And even if you win 2,
Richter has the Stanley Cup, but he still can't get in.
Yeah, Richter's got 1, Vernon's got 2, Osgood's got 2, Barrasso's got 2.
So it's more than that. It's even more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. Wow, it's a tough one. I don't know.
I do have some Nashville news for you, Eck. So when they beat the Flyers, I was in the locker room and spoke to Johansson and Ryan Ellis. I got the feeling, and I didn't get a chance to write about it, but I probably will write about it today, that win against the Flyers sort of unlocked something for the Predators, because it seemed like they were just struggling offensively for no reason. Like it almost was a little bit of coaching. I was talking to Pete Weber in between periods. We both felt like other players were playing out of position. Fiala could have been like on the first line. He should never be on like the third or fourth line.
Right.
And the power play, even though you're missing Subban, you still have Ryan Ellis and Roman Josi. It's not like you're missing a lot. And yet they were still struggling woefully offensively, but they won in a shootout, and it just like you should have seen Johansson, how like he just seemed relieved, completely relieved. Yeah. Like this was like a big weight they were carrying on their back. And I got a hold of Ellis before the media really swarmed around him because he had the winning shootout goal, and he really felt like this was something that was unlocking things for them. And then they won 5-1 yesterday. And so, it's amazing how just if you are struggling, how one win could get you that way. But I will tell you this, Peter Laviolette answered like 2 questions and left. He does not like interviewing in Philadelphia. Really? He can't, when he's in Philadelphia, he can't leave quick enough.
So strange, really is. I mean, he did have a good experience in Philadelphia, you would think. I mean, it was, everything.
Well, I guess the way he was let go, he wasn't a fan of,
Yeah, coaches usually aren't. But
heck, I did a little bit of research yesterday after we had our discussion regarding the Predators and the rumors that we were discussing yesterday. Mm-hmm. If they decide to go 8 skaters instead of the 7-3-1,
right?
Now a guy like Mike Ribeiro and a guy like Mike Fisher, they're both UFAs at the end of the year. They could, if they go and protect their core 4 defensemen, they could protect Forsberg, Neal, Craig Smith, and Johansson. The only one that they would risk losing a Colin Wilson or a Kalle Järnkrok instead of if they go 7-3-1, the risk of losing an Ellis or an Ekholm. Right. So I don't know if the motivation is there to trade one of those defensemen either before the expansion draft or before the deadline, just simply to protect those forwards, because those forwards I think are replaceable.
Well, but here's the thing. Okay, so I did have a long talk with Pete about Järnkrok, and he does get misused every year in Nashville because he's a guy that can fill every role.
Yeah.
And when you're a guy that can fill every role, you generally don't get to do it your best at.
Yeah.
And I think that if they lose him, they're losing somebody very valuable.
That's a player they don't want
to really help another team.
Right.
I agree with you 100%. He's different than Colin Wilson's a different story.
He is a different story.
But there's a way to protect those guys. I mean, you know that there's going to be side deals here where teams are going to be saying, okay, if you don't,
I think they're going to be hard to make, though. I really do, because
yes and no. I mean, especially if somebody like George McPhee is getting a young player out of Nashville that that he likes. Like, I mean, if all of a sudden they say, okay, well, if you don't take Yarncroc, you can have Hamenev. We'll trade you Hamenev.
Yeah, but they won't do that either.
Well, no, but I'm using him as an example. But I'm saying if there's a young player there that they say, okay, we would rather give this guy up than give up Yarncroc, then I think that's a possibility. The thing is, the premium on defensemen in the trade market. I mean, if they trade an Ellis or if they trade an Ekholm, it's probably going to be for a forward, and that's a forward they're going to have to protect. So I don't know whether there's any real benefit to them going that way. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys. Yeah, both those guys are tough guys to lose in a way. I mean, Colin Wilson has had just amazing playoffs for them and continues to do that. But at the same time, how long can you just be a playoff guy? Like it's crazy. It is crazy. His game in the playoffs, it's one of those things you have to wonder, is he just that good in the playoffs, or is he just not working hard in the regular season? You don't know which way it's going to go with him.
Yeah, you don't. But, like, as an example, like Teravainen for Carolina has got 15 points in 31 games. He's only 22.
Right.
Like, that's a guy I'm sure Chicago really didn't want to have to get rid of.
Right.
And I think Yarncroc, same thing. I think he is a guy that playing with the right players in the right situation can produce a lot better, but since he can do everything, he sort of gets marginalized.
What he kind of reminds me of is Simone Gagne early in his career.
Mm-hmm.
How Simone Gagne the Flyers were doing the same thing with him early on. Like, they were playing he was killing penalties, he was playing all over the place, and they never really let him just be a skilled scorer, which is what he was.
Right.
Yeah, but because Gagne was a first-round pick.
I mean, he's not saying he's – I get what you're saying, the kind of thing, essence of him. Just the essence of him, yeah.
He seems like a skilled player at heart. Like, he really does seem like a skilled player, and yet he does all the little things very well, and that ends up putting him into a spot where they end up using him in penalty kills or third, fourth line duty, and not teaming him with. I'd like to see him play more with Forsberg. I'd like to see him do more. I mean, I'd like to see what he can do. And a couple times in the playoffs last year, he did manage to score some pretty big goals for them.
Yeah, I think he could be a 20-goal scorer. He had 16 last year, but with the role he has with Peter Laviolette, it's impossible. Like, he's got 5 goals. He's better than that. He's only 25 years old too.
Yeah, I do agree, and I do think Laviolette really needed that win in Philly.
He did.
In a big way. It's kind of plateaued for the Predators there, and Laviolette's history was when he plateaus, it doesn't return to positive things. Usually plateaus for a while and then goes the opposite direction. So he needed that win big, and it's good. And they did have another really good win last night, like you said. So it's a big thing last night. A lot of games last night. Obviously, we can get into them. But we have to start with the Blue Jackets, because they have extended their winning streak now to 10 games, becoming the second team to win 10 games this year. And there's been so much said about the Blue Jackets. We've talked about it. We've talked about Tortorella a little bit. We're going to have I have a friend who's a really good Blue Jackets fan who's going to come on next week, a surprise guest. Who is a relatively famous person who's going to come on, and it'll be kind of fun to have him on. The thing about the Blue Jackets is this. I just want to throw this out there for a second. Is their pick of Dubois suddenly looking very different, Russ?
In what way? Like a great team getting another
great player?
that
they were going to be the best team in the NHL for a while. I mean, should they have still made that? You still think they made a mistake, or do we still?
No, I never thought they made a mistake. No,
right.
I think it's still a great pick. I just think the way I was looking at it for them was, you're going to have to spend time now turning him back into a center.
Right.
And that will just keep him away from the NHL for a year or two more. Because I felt like maybe they desperately needed a player at the NHL level. Now that everything's clicking, it's going to work out great for them, because Dubois will be a world beater when he gets up there, because he definitely can play center. It's just he wasn't going to be able to learn center at the NHL level. That's the issue. And he's played it before, so I think after this season, he'll be pretty close.
How has he been this year?
No, he's been really good. I think he's been really, really good. He's having a solid year. I'll look up his point total, but he
Well, I mean, and that's a funny thing, Russ, because I mean, I had heard he got traded from Cape Breton to, was it Blandville?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he only had 6 goals in 20 games. Now, I don't know because I don't follow the Q at that much, whether he was playing up the middle, on the request of Columbus to have him play up the middle, or if he was playing the wing. He did make Team Canada for the World Juniors, so he's going to play the wing for them. So it does give them some flexibility, if they want to use him at center, if they think he will translate to being a center in the NHL. But the thing is, they could play him at the wing, let him gain some experience, and then maybe move him to up the middle later on. But right now, I mean, with Wenberg, with Gagne, with Dubinsky, they're not terrible up the middle.
Looks like he has 18 points in his 20 games. And so I think when you're learning, 18 points in 20 games, 6 goals. I think when you're learning the center position over again, that's fine. I think I have no problem with that point total. I'd rather, I think by the end of the season, he'll end up a point a game anyhow. And I think that's all you're looking for. If he were a winger, he would probably be 2.5 points a game. But that is the difference of playing that position when you've been playing wing for a couple of years, going back to learn that position. And the one thing Jarmo Kekalainen is willing to do is wait. And it's served him well. I mean, I think where they got the big bonus this year was with Alexander Wenberg. He's leading the team in scoring, and that's where they got the big jump. That's really one of Jarmo's best picks, and he won't say it's his pick. It's the scouts' picks, and it is. And that's really one of their the scouts' best picks in the last couple of years, because he has just accelerated at a rate faster than even I thought he would accelerate at.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. And this team is just, they're proving everybody wrong. And you think that they're going to get off to a hot start. Well, now they're even hotter than they were when they started. I mean, they got off to a good start. Now they're even playing better. They're in a tough division. It's almost like they've put themselves in a playoff spot already, which is really weird for them, because that's a team that usually has to battle like hell to try to get towards the playoffs.
Right.
A very interesting thing about the Flyers, and while we're at it with them, with their playoffs chances, because they're right on the bubble, and they're going to be on the bubble all year. They're going to be
same as last year.
Yeah, the weird thing about them is that they have played so few games against Metro Division teams. It's an unbelievable thing, and that can play a fact. That's not a good thing for the Flyers, because the Metro Division is so solid, and the Flyers have struggled against the Metro a little bit in the past couple of years. So they really have to. This win streak was huge, because they have to start piling up points before they hit the meat of their schedule, which is coming very soon now.
The tough thing is they won 10, but they didn't gain the kind of ground you would think they need to gain, and that's why we kept saying on this show, and I kept telling people, it's a different year. Yeah. Even though they're playing better than last year, so is everybody else. So even that 10 games means if they really want to be a playoff team this year, they're going to have to win like 10 out of every 15 games.
And really, the team that they're going to be battling right now, if you look at the team they're going to be battling, it's going to be Tampa.
And I'm going to call those hack stocks. They're little stocks that the Flyers can buy into the
stocks. I like that.
The season. Like that. And every 10 out of 15, Mike, you could track this.
Yeah,
that's the hack stock that they're going to have to purchase if they want to make the playoffs.
You got to get 10 out of 15.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now. I mean, they have 42 points in 30 games, and Tampa Bay and Florida are the closest outside of the playoffs at 35. So you could say, well, if you have a 10-game win streak, you should have a larger gap than that. But 7 points is fairly significant. So
but Tampa is coming.
Tampa is the worst team to be behind you.
Yes.
Yeah, Tampa will get healthy. They are not healthy now, but they will get healthy. When they get healthy, right now, someone pointed this out that the Lightning have $28.3 million worth of injuries going on right now.
Right. And they've already put Stamkos on LTIR, so there's $8.5 million that they can invest.
Oh yeah, now they've got. I mean, Bishop, Callahan, Kucherov, Palat, and Stamkos are all hurt. So that's.
If you look at their line combinations, I mean, Corey Conacher is a regular now, as Mike predicted. It's really crazy to think that
you have to think there's going to come a push for Tampa. That Tampa's going to find a way to get in the playoffs. So then who's out? So at that point, who's out?
And Ben Bishop got hurt last night. The goalies are dropping like flies last night. Ben Bishop got hurt.
But we all think that Vasilevsky's the better guy anyhow, so I don't think that's going to hurt him.
Right. Well, I think it hurts them in the sense that when they do rest Vasilevsky, if this is a serious injury, they have to go to Goodlevskis.
Yeah, Goodlevskis isn't bad though. He really isn't
bad. I'm just saying. I would if I'm going to take a battle of the backups, I'll take Ben Bishop over.
Oh, sure.
All right, let's go to some rumors before we get out of here today. Okay, so Kadri, we talked about this yesterday. It came.
Let's get Russ's idea. Let's get Russ.
It came to me yesterday that the Calgary Flames are very interested in Nazem Kadri, and it made some sense. And on a couple of different levels, obviously, Brian Burke drafted Nazem Kadri.
Right.
And then the other thing that I was told was that Brian Burke and company out there love the way Kadri plays against McDavid. So bringing him out there to Calgary to have to face McDavid for the next, who knows, decade or what have you,
right,
is something that's really appealing to them. And so there's some sense. Now, what we heard was the Leafs weren't totally opposed to this, but wanted Dougie Hamilton in return. So that comes out to an interesting trade. It's more than you would think they would get for Kadri on some levels, but then Kadri has picked it up this year. So
I'm thinking, all right, you got to give me a minute because that's a heavy one.
Yeah.
Here's the contract. The particular. Yeah. Kadri's got another 5 seasons at $4.5 million with a modified no trade clause. Dougie Hamilton has another 4 years at $5.75 million.
It's not that big a deal either way. Both deals are affordable. If I'm Calgary, I can see making that deal because of the McDavid factor. That does make and that's overriding the points that Kadri will bring to my team.
Right.
But that is a big factor. They will have to face him. What do you face a team? 12 times a year? 16 times? Something like that.
5 times inside your own division. 5 or 4 or 5 times. It used to be 8. Now it's 4 or 5.
Oh, 8 was the number I was thinking in my head. Right. So, well, 8 times. All right. So is it worth it?
Playoffs, there's a good chance you play in the playoffs too.
It's down to 4 or 5 now.
So it's down to 5. So I don't know if it's worth it. Yeah.
But when we get to 30, this is the other thing though. But when we get to 32 teams, we're going to have divisional playoffs. That's what's going to happen. We're going to have first place 4, second place 3rd. So you're going to have that's coming in the next year or two. So that has to be taken into account.
Well, you really have it now. You really have it now. It's only
now.
Yeah,
I forgot it was down that low though. Yeah, I don't know if it's down that low.
I think the thing, and this is again, I looked at this last night, is that you look at Calgary right now, and they've got Goudreau and Monahan making over $6 million, and then you've got that mid-level of Brouwer and Frolik making over 4, Michael Backlund making 3.5. That to me, and they're probably going to have to pay Sam Bennett around that much when they negotiate his new deal. So they probably have to get rid of one of those guys in a trade to sort of clear room for a guy like Kadri. If they're spending another $4.5 million.
Yeah, Kadri is cheaper than Hamilton, so.
Right, but they have to replace Hamilton. That's the thing.
I know.
And replacing defensemen is expensive. I mean, if they're going to pay the price to get Kadri and to give up Hamilton to get Kadri, they're going to have to find an avenue out there to find a defenseman to replace Hamilton, and that'll be more expensive.
Unless they have somebody that they think is coming up, unless they have a guy.
Shillington was the guy that we were.
Yeah, Shillington's good. He's not going to be an offensive replacement, but he is a great puck mover and a really good defenseman. I think they could still make the deal and survive. I do. I think that's a pretty good deal for them. They'll save a little bit. Shillington will probably get accelerated. I think if they pick up another free agent defenseman, somebody like, a bottom pairing guy that is a veteran, I think they can get by with that because you do have to build up the Sam Bennett line, and maybe that's the way you start to build a really solid line with Sam Bennett. Because if Bennett did play with somebody that had a little bit more grease in him like Kadri, he probably could get more points.
And it's always been my calculation, Russ, that Kadri was signed. First, he was signed to that deal because the deal was a good money deal, a good value. Right. They got the extension. It was under $5 million. But my calculation has always been that Kadri was there only for Babcock to coach him up, to make him a more valuable commodity, to put all that off the ice stuff that happened a couple years ago in the rearview mirror.
Which they have.
And the attitude stuff. And now that they've shown him as a potential shutdown center, or at least an irritant up the middle, I think right now his value is at its absolute highest.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think I would make the deal. I do, because they also have Jankowski coming up at center. Like, they could start to really have a much better offensive team, and because even their offense still stinks. Let's face it, it's not good.
Yeah, and Hamilton, should have been drafted by them anyway, right?
The pick from the Kessel deal, yeah.
Right. So, that's pretty funny. I mean, I think it was an interesting rumor. And it's got serious legs, as I wrote today in my blog. And there's Toronto at this point is asking for Hamilton. What I was told is that Calgary is not moving Hamilton right now, but that's where it's at now. Whether or not it gets to another player like you talked about yesterday, Mike, I don't know. But
like a TJ Brody, which
I don't think they're moving Brody.
Yeah. So
I know Brody's having a tough year, but I don't think you can move TJ Brody. I think you know what you have in him, and sometimes guys had down years. That is the way it is.
Right. On the rumor chart, I also added today Marc-Andre Fleury to the chart. I was trying to hold him off. I really was, because my belief is that Pittsburgh is going to run this out. But I had to add him out because I heard a very interesting one that had Arizona making a big play for him. And, it does make some sense with what Arizona has and where they're trying to go. And what I've heard, which is that they really want to have a solid veteran goalie to help build that team. Like that's something that they feel like they need. And they felt like they were at their best when, Mike Smith was there and was doing a good job for them and playing really well. And they think Marc-Andre Fleury could be that guy.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and he's had some bad games, especially that game in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. But actually, Mike Smith, I mean, I saw him play against the Leafs, and he played pretty good. I mean, the problem here is if they go after Fleury, and Fleury has another couple years at $5 million, Mike Smith's just as expensive, more expensive, unless they're prepared to have a situation like Dallas where they're paying two goalies over $5 million.
Or unless they know they can move Smith somehow, which is possible.
Yeah, I mean, but as we said yesterday,
I don't think you can move him.
Yeah,
I don't think he's very movable either. But I think what this could come down to is a situation of, okay, if they take both Fleury and Smith, maybe they lose one to Vegas. Like maybe there's something. If you've got both of those goalies, it's possible that you lose one too. So, depending on what the goalie is, we don't know what Vegas is looking at, but Marc-Andre Fleury has been, the rumor guy.
If I'm George McPhee and I have a choice between taking Mike Smith or Louis Domingue, I take Louis Domingue because he's the younger goalie and he's cheaper.
But if you have Marc-Andre Fleury too in that mix, you take Marc-Andre Fleury.
Well, they probably protect Fleury then. If they trade for him, they're probably protecting him.
Unless they are thinking in terms of, like you're saying, maybe they think Mike Smith's okay, and maybe they're looking at, remember what Arizona has done here. They've made a couple trades that have been very strategic trades, and they did it with that too. Yeah, right. So maybe this is the place where Pittsburgh feels like they can put him. Who knows? Like we've talked about, there are going to be trades and deals that happen. So maybe they feel like they can put him there and protect him there, or they feel like they can get something for him and the Coyotes want to protect somebody else, so they leave him exposed. It's possible. There's a lot of different options, but it does sound like of all the Fleury rumors that I've heard, and there've been so many Fleury rumors, this has the most legitimacy to it. So I don't know quite the extent of the bat. But we're trying to just speculate on the reasoning for it.
Well, the interesting thing here is if Fleury agrees to be traded, he waives his no move clause.
Right.
He could just agree to waive his no move clause before the expansion draft to allow Pittsburgh to protect Matt Murray. Then he could stay in Pittsburgh the rest of the year and then be picked up by Vegas if that's the end goal. If he wants to play someplace else where he can be the number one and have a chance to win, then that's different.
But again, what if the contract isn't right and he's not going to go? They might have to move Matt Murray.
Right, and that's the thing that nobody.
And that might happen like at the last minute.
Right, that's the thing that nobody is talking about here, because
Right.
I mean everybody.
Yeah, I know. I think there's, you know, I really think that Rutherford's going to figure out a way to not do that. That's the point.
Well, the
It's
thing
going to be hard.
I mean, if Fleury is intent on staying in Pittsburgh, he can stick it to the Penguins organization. I got the no move clause. I'm not accepting a trade. Nah. He
Right.
can do that. And if he does
Well,
that,
his agent is Alan Walsh, we know, right? So this is going to be fun from that perspective in and of itself, right?
But it is a possibility, and I'm sure Rutherford knows it's a possibility, and the players still love Fleury. So, look, would they miss Matt Murray? Sure, but they have Marc-Andre Fleury. They love him too. And so it's possible they might have to move Matt Murray.
It is. It is possible. It is possible. I feel as if though, even though his agent is who he is, even though I get the sense that if Fleury was told that he's not going to be the guy who's going to play his games, I think that's why people aren't talking about this. I think people really, because he's the kind of guy who doesn't seem like he would play that kind of a game.
I mean, we'll see. You know, going back to Calgary for 1 sec, I wanted to look it up. So Sam Bennett last year was 46% faceoffs. This year, 44%. He's a young guy, but, you know, at the end of the day, if they got Kadri, I'd rather see him on the wing. And that was what I was getting at with that. And I think that's where it does make sense, too, because Kadri's a lot better on faceoffs than Bennett.
Yeah. Kadri for them would be the perfect number 2 center behind Monahan.
Yep.
And, and then
Jankowski would be their number 3 at some point.
Yeah.
And it would make the Battle of Alberta so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just take it another level. It would remind me of like Joel Otto back in the, you know, how Joel Otto gave hell to Gretzky and Messier for all those years. It was great. It's just great fun. You have to have that kind of thing.
I have a feeling by the end of the a potential playoff series between Calgary and Edmonton that Milan Lucic would be on secondary homicide charges.
Oh yeah, no, he would. I mean, Kadri is such an annoyance to people, and that it's exactly, you know, and you know, Burke would love nothing more than to annoy the hell out of Edmonton.
Sure, that would be great.
Right in his wheelhouse, you know. So if he can find a way to do it, you know, he's trying. I mean,
I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, it would be something. It really would.
I think my cat Anna loves you.
I appreciate it. I love Anna as well.
She's looking right at you right now.
Hello. All right, so we will be back again tomorrow. That's all the time we have for today. Remember to stay tuned to this channel tomorrow. You don't have to stay the entire time. You can just come back a little before 1 o'clock if you want. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you then.